we say something about American football since this is a Philly-based podcast?
Yeah. Last time I got a hotel right next to Center City. Tornado bought the room, thanks. It was mayhem. I had to park there. I parked right next to City Hall on the north side, coming down Broad. And the police officer stops me. She's staring at me. She's like, "Are you sure about that? They're going to be flipping cars later." I think, yeah, I'm going to keep this parking spot and I'm going to get my free parking. Walk down, finish the game. Crowd goes wild. Sue and I run out. We get halfway across Chestnut, which is 1 block away from the hotel. Think of how long it takes to get from the hotel down to Chestnut. We walk across Chestnut and we get stuck. It becomes apparent that we can't walk any further on Chestnut because the crowd is coming northbound and we're going southbound. And then we turn and look northbound, and then it becomes apparent we're not going back the way we came either. Sue starts crying. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna get squeezed to death. And so I just drag her across the street. I'm like, well, you can't stay, because that's not an option either. She's crying more, and then we made it out alive. But they tried to flip a trash truck. It's unflippable, but they were trying. The poles were greased to no effect because they had ungreased the poles because they knew this was coming. You've got people on the poles with towels, ungreasing them. I expect more of this going forward because we're going to win again.
As a native New Yorker, I threw up the tequila in my mouth when I saw the Empire State Building green in honor of Philly winning.
Whoa, really?
Nah, I didn't like that. When I saw it on TV, I was like, what the hell? Come on, yo. Come on.
All right. All right, let's get into community service hour. Let's get into show and tell. So this show and tell is a repo. This is a small nugget. Rito had brought this up before. The question was, how do we make QR codes that are dynamic? Print them once and they can scan and go to different things. The only thing that can go to different places is a HTTP redirect or an HTML redirect. The easier of the two is an HTML redirect, which is implemented here in this repository. In the show notes, you'll find a link here for jump QR codes. And there's 3 QR codes here. The thing you have to worry about with QR codes is sometimes they work differently on different devices and based on how old your device is, what other apps are on your device. If your QR code is going to open a web page, it's basically going to work every time. But if it's going to send a text message, or it's going to open a crypto something, or it's going to send an email or an SMS, it might be restricted. I have an iPhone, last year's iPhone. It's on lockdown mode. When people text me stuff, I'm like, I can't open that. Certain texts don't work. These QR codes worked for me. Just for QR codes, you really got to check this stuff on different devices. So you scan the number 1, it pulls up a web page. You scan the number 2, it pulls up the text. So I'm going to show you what's going on behind the scenes. The first one pulls up this web page. So it's straight redirected into this example web page. To run that back slow motion, I'm going to give you curl. And this is what it looks like before it redirects. Curl would run a redirect, but this is an HTML redirect, and curl does not run HTML. What is curl? Curl is a command line tool for downloading stuff over HTTP and other protocols. So what you can see here is it's going to perform a URL equals example.com, and then it's also going to have a link, an ahref to example.com. The browser, this is a 0 time delay, so 0 seconds, example.com. End result is it just jumps you straight over to that other page. I'll pull up the second URL, so that's /2, and it's asking me if I want to open this in messages.app. Even if you're on a computer, it will send a text message if you have SMS capability on your computer. So your computer's got to be hooked into something that can send text messages. Number 3, this sends an email. If I were to hit OK, depending on how my computer is set up, it would actually just jump straight into an email. These are cool because email links are actually really versatile, and you can have like a subject or a body in there, and you always want to do that. You can get a lot of mileage out of that. So this is a brief example of 3 different QR codes that go to a specific URL but then jump somewhere else. How's it work? This code is actually editable by people without coding experience, and the way it works is if you wanted to deploy this in production, you would just edit this jumps. There's a repo here, which you can get in the show notes. You've got these 3 HTML files. When you click on it, it tells you to fill in the details for exactly one section. So I filled in the URI section in the first one, and the SMS section in the second one, and in the third one, we've got the email section. Rito was talking about other types of wallets for crypto and things like that, and we can program more features in, but these ones work. So I wanted to go to market with something that works. How would you use this? You've got this repo here. This repo is a fully functioning product. So you can actually go to market with this. That is an important part of demos. With a lot of creativity and polish and magic, you can imagine this thing being an actual product. You have to come up with a narrative on why that's a good idea, but other people could click edit here And then you would click approve and the change would be effective. You would only click approve if the person making the change was authorized to make a change as known to you. Right? So you're kind of like a notary in this situation. I'm not saying that's the best product design, but you sell it, right? So this is that product, and if you can sell that product, then the product's already built. Obviously, the homepage can be a lot better than this. Here's the homepage that I've got. You don't even need QR codes for a homepage. You could just have some text on, why this is cool and how to buy one of these. And then those individual QRs will do what they do. But that's it. That's the whole product. So minus some styling, that's it. How do you implement this? So what you do is you click this button up here called fork. You put it into your GitHub account. You shove a GitHub account. And then you can start editing these things. This is something I've published under Full Decent. You are welcome to edit these things, but I'm only going to accept your edits on my repo if they are generic for everybody. If you want to start adding branding or whatever, then you want to make the edits on your fork. And because you have a fork, that means that if there's changes that I make, for example, adding QQ code, then you can pull these requests in and make your product a little better based on my version.
How do we pull them?
Yep. So what you do is on your version.
How to pull them without just directly copying everything and pasting it like a loser.
Branch is your version, is 3 commits ahead and 1 behind Full Decent main. So that's my version. So you can click on that. And it's going to give you those changes. The issue is I'm not logged in. That's why. So if you pull it up this way, then you will see an extra button here that says create pull request, and then it will be actionable. It says it can be automatically merged. Depending on how complicated these changes are, especially if I'm doing a change that is pretty similar to a change you're doing, then you're going to get a quote conflict. You're going to get a red text here. It's not a problem. It just wants you to manually reconcile these changes before it just goes ahead and blows through them. If you've ever been in college, back when you used Microsoft Word files, this person said this version, this girl said that version, and you have to consolidate the changes. And sometimes when you do that, you miss a change from a certain person. I hope everyone here has been in college and done Word files and can appreciate that this is not an easy task. And usually you assign one person to be the draft master who does these things. And this is the role that Git is taking right now. It's doing that for program source code rather than your college essay that's due tomorrow. And it works pretty well. And it scales to thousands of people instead of just, you and your 10 people.
Why did you choose to implement it the way you did? It's just an interesting use of Jekyll.
So other options here could have been to just create some HTML files. And I could have said anybody who wants to use this, just copy and edit these HTML files. I felt like there were 2 problems with this. You have to know how to edit an HTML file. Did you know that every time there's a space in an email subject or a SMS subject or a website URL, that you have to replace that space with a %20 or a plus, depending on where that space is? Not everybody knows that. And instead, I made it as a way where I said, okay, well, all you have to do is type after this colon, and it will figure out all of those silly rules. 2, this follows a principle of do not repeat yourself. So as you're going from the scan to the page that you want, you might want to introduce a 1 second or 2 second delay, like a loading screen. That experience right there is something you probably want to add to all of the pages. If I implemented this a different way, I would have to tell you, okay, you have to go edit every one of the HTML files. That's fine. But in modern programming, we try to avoid repeating ourselves. And so we would factor that into one specific place. You would edit that one thing one place, and it would be effective everywhere. That's called dry. Do not repeat yourself. Brief update. Dan and I are working on setting up a DAO or something like a DAO. The basis of our proposal is that this will be a cross blockchain to appreciate things that you do. I actually got a couple domain names for this. One of them is thankyou.w2f. We're thinking that these would be called thank yous. And the cool thing that nobody else has done, because there's no money in it doing it this way, is that these thank yous can work on any network. Polygon, Ethereum, any EVM network, at least for now. Maybe more networks. That's kind of Game 7 is kind of cross-platform. So we're talking with them, and it's like, is this for them, or do we want to do it a different way? And then 2, check out this domain name. You ready for this? Our.gg.
Nice.
So we've got that on lock. That could be our home for this whole initiative.
Oh, that's great. How did you get that?
I know, right? All that matters is the props. The props can live in a lot of places. I prop you, that's global. Like I prop you here on Twitter, I prop you on the blockchain, I prop you, We get drinks together. Those are different types of props. It's not like I only prop you on Twitter. It's a relationship, right? So that relationship should not just live on Polygon. That's how a lot of people set it up now, is they kind of put their whole home on a specific network. I think we can do better than that.
How does the cross-chain token exist? I mean, it sounds like the basis for it is some fundamentally off-chain object that has properties that enter different blockchains simultaneously, but it's the off-chain object that makes it all possible. Does that make sense?
That's right. So imagine how this works in real life. Let's say I'm super famous and I'm like, yo, this is my boy, and we do a photo together. You're going to take the photo and you're going to whore that out. You're going to put it on your Twitter. If I was that famous, you might even take this photo of us together and put it on your resume. There are probably 10 people on Earth that are that level of famous where if you have a photo with them, you might put it on your resume.
People do that on LinkedIn.
As their profile?
As the background. Like, oh, I took a photo and Barack Obama was somewhere in the photo. So was my head.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Wow. He leveled up. Yeah.
So that photo can live anywhere, right? The thank you would exist digitally, verifiably, connected to some identity, connected to Web3, right? But that same message, that same thank you, can be recorded on Ethereum, on Polygon, on Avalanche. You can replay it anywhere. If you're on Ethereum, you might have a way where people that have these thank yous of some specific variety would get access to a thing on Ethereum. And there might be this thing on Polygon where the same thank you might give you access to something on Polygon. Those are entirely different networks. If you have a CryptoPunk, that lives on Ethereum. You can't use that CryptoPunk to gain access to something on Polygon. It doesn't work that way because the CryptoPunk is confined inside of Ethereum network.
Is it actually confined? Would we say that when the image hash is stored somewhat locally? Couldn't you theoretically have a CryptoPunk on any other blockchain so long as the image hash is present?
Yes, but there's a no double spend issue here. At the time that this thing is existing on Polygon, it needs to be locked up on Ethereum. If there were two copies of the thing, one on Polygon and one on Ethereum, and they were owned by different people, now you've got one thing owned by two people. Doesn't make sense. It's got to be either stuck in one of them and alive on the other. These thank yous have a very cool specific feature. The feature is that they are for a specific person. They are thanking somebody. So if you're thanking a specific person, it doesn't matter where you are. That person lives on this network or that network. It doesn't matter. There's no fear of it transferring somewhere else. So these are soul-bound.
So how would this actually work? Is it just we would have to create an oracle that has view functions on all the blockchain? Oh, messaging.
So you create a message off-chain, you sign it. The giver, the taker, anybody could play this message. That costs gas, that costs money. They could play it on the different networks. If you're off-chain, if you're a normal human, then the message is good enough. But if you want to use this message to prove to a smart contract on Polygon somehow, then you would have to post this message onto Polygon, and that would cost somebody, anybody, gas. So somebody would have to pay gas. These messages can be used to calculate voting or participation. You can do a lot of stuff with these messages, but you can also do them on-chain or off-chain. This is a broad idea, something we've discussed here.
But to verify the message, you'd still need some kind of oracle.
What do you mean verify?
Replay the message on a new blockchain. Couldn't somebody put like a fraudulent message?
Because it's signed. The message is signed. So the thank you is from somebody to somebody with a message, maybe points, and a signature.
Is the signature from a specific blockchain?
Nope. It's using elliptic curve cryptography that is native to all EVM networks. Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Optimism.
What about non-EVM networks? Are there blockchains this cannot touch if it lacks that certain infrastructure?
Maybe. However, other networks like Near can. And if they don't support it, then you can hack it. So you can build the math required to validate these things. Some of this cryptography might be ridiculous, so it might cost a lot of gas or whatever resources on those networks, but it should be possible. Because you can do it by hand, Rough. But you could physically do it on paper and pen, right? These are just math problems.
I guess I'm still not clear. Like, you'd still have to verify something off chain for it to mean anything.
The identity of the person who created the thank you would need to be valuable to you.
Right.
So anybody can thank you anybody. Most of those thank yous are not valuable. I happen to think the way Twitter does it is wrong, and I hope they do it more like WeChat. When you look at a tweet and you see 10 million people liked something, 10 million doesn't matter to me. I don't know 10 million people. The only thing I care about is whether you guys like it. When you use WeChat, that's how it works. And 20 people like something, but you only know 4 of them, you don't see 20, you see 4. And you see their names right there. And so it's way more personal and meaningful.
These signatures don't live on-chain, right? There's no worry for replay attacks, and also there's no bridge either. There's also no concern for hacking this non-existent oracle.
These can be replayed. The only thing it's going to do is cost the gas. They can be replayed by anybody. So my thought was that anybody could post a message. Anybody can post anybody's message. If you feel like you want to pay the gas to post Daniel's thank you of Rito, doesn't matter. Either way, the fact is Daniel has thanked Rito. It's verifiable. We can see that. Whoever wants to spend the money to put that on a blockchain, it's up to them. If you have a thank you from Dan in your hand, even if there's no internet, somebody else could be like, okay, they can verify that you have a thank you from Daniel. Now, the opposite, I don't trust this, is not a thank you. If there are positive things that the recipient would want to have, the system makes sense this way. If these are reputation management systems and there can be negative reputations, then these have to be published somewhere. Otherwise, the negative ones just don't go anywhere. No restaurant that you go to has 1-star ratings printed on their windows. Non-consensual token community recovery. Could you tell us what you were thinking with that?
I was actually referring to you're in a community and you have credentials from soulbound tokens from a community. Something goes wrong. You want to either did something wrong and get a scarlet letter. So how do you revoke that?
Great question. There's a couple ways this could work. They could revoke what they gave you. So they could give you reputation and they can take that same reputation away. Or they could give you 2 things. They could give you good things and then give you bad things, and then you carry both. Let me point you to one specific use case in ERC 721. Right at the top, we even wrote this here, negative value assets, loans, burdens, and other responsibilities. This is like the top use case that we were thinking about with NFTs. And so this would be something that you cannot shed. There would be a token, and then you would have a negative value token, and you can have both tokens at the same time. So you would have a Scarlet Letter token, and you would have a community member token. Another way to do it is a non-consensual community recovery. So the community decides to call back your token. Elif, any ideas about those 2 different approaches?
It makes sense, however, overriding some damaged reputation.
Sounds like you're adding a lot of rules here, which is fine.
Yes, that should be a criteria. I think time is an important criteria that is applied to many, strategies of recovery processes, right?
The approach is fine. Reputation is time-based. Reputation has criteria and factors. You can do this in 2 different ways. One way is that you can put it into a smart contract. So the smart contract comes out with a number at all times, and the number can change for each person. The problem with that is the system for determining the number is a game. Games are important. Understanding the rules of the game ahead of time can be difficult. There's 7 people on this call, and none of us have probably ever set up a government before. Philadelphia is a city with 2 million people. Your DAO might have 2 million people in it. So think about the amount of effort put into the checks and balances and fairness of Philadelphia, the city, for its citizens. And then remember that even they didn't get it right, because they still have votes every year, twice a year, on how to change stuff. Now think about your DAO, which can never be changed, and the amount of experience that we have, even together, the 7 of us combined, on building these systems. It's really tough. And when you put these rules in there, they're permanent, usually.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is I'm actually trying to propose a feature for my product I'm not sure if I disclose it, but here it goes. So communities come together to issue borderless experience for every individual. For example, I'm Turkish, and let's say that I don't have a visa, and I know a place in Ukraine, like an organization, a community, a DAO, whatever entity you call, issue me some credentials with some specific privileges. I want to use that privilege when I want to apply for visa sponsorship. There will be a huge breakthrough in terms of use case scenario, right? I feel like it doesn't have to be one entity issuing that credentials, but multiple entities together coming to a consensus to actually verifying that credential. Does that make sense?
Right. All governments should be using blockchain at least for document validation. And for that, I support your project. Creating a smart contract to judge people? Probably too much.
No, like a paperwork helper, let's say.
Okay.
Sir William, you told something all governments should use blockchain for their validation.
All documents the governments produce should have QR codes that you can validate them.
Barcodes and digital numbers instead of blockchain. So what is the benefit of using blockchain instead of using digital barcodes and digital?
I was wrong. Governments don't need blockchain, but they need a couple things that blockchain has. All documents should have a QR code and a serial number that government makes. They usually do already. The document should be verifiable. You should be able to verify that this tax receipt is authentic. If the government wants to revoke that document, you should know if the document has been revoked. These three things work really well on blockchains, and they work well in other ways too. And you can use blockchain ideas on other systems, even better than blockchain itself.
It is interesting. We are talking about documentation, but right now in the United Nations, they have a new standards for even plastic bottles. And all those plastic bottles need to carry those digital barcodes and numbers on it to align with if they are recycled or not and what type of material is that.
That was a good question. No, the lady, I support you.
Thank you, Elif. I support you too, and I feel you. And you asked about that reputation within the smart contract for individuals. It can be very controversial when it comes to amplify this to the DAO or any kind of organization. It is actually dangerous part of the blockchain to me, because easily also governments and corporations can amplify this idea to their policies, and it makes everything more authoritarian on me.
That's right. Governments need to be constrained. This is an age-old question. Not proposing to change the scope of government. I'm just saying that digitally, if they're producing documents, you should be able to validate them.
My thoughts exactly. I'm just helping to better, collaborate for a better future.
Nerdy lady, did you want to talk more about plastic bottles specifically?
Always. You know me. I'm always up for the discussion with you about blockchain. You know what? I was thinking about that because we just started talking about the governments. There's also other issue, actually. For example, with my government, they are able to ban you from the internet or Twitter, which actually Twitter says they are not giving any information to the governments about their users. But the truth is that government easily can find out the anonymous accounts with the small data mining. Somehow there are still people who are in the jail because of their tweets in my country. So is there any chance to break this authoritarian regime at least on the internet? Maybe Web3 might help to this. Somehow there should be something which that data also transparent and easy to trace, right? So what is the essence of the creating private and safe space on the internet?
Web3 does not promote anonymity, except for payments like Monero or the legal use cases of Tornado Cash, in ways that even dollars can't be. So we have dollars, all the dollars have serial numbers, and you can just track these dollars pretty easily. Now, there are one or two specific ideas that crypto has, which are way easier to use in Web3, and that is digital signatures. This has already been used since the 90s. There are people that contribute to projects that are anonymous, and they are just digitally signing things. The author of the Bitcoin white paper could just publish the paper, nobody knows who they are, but they digitally sign it. So if they ever decide they want to come back and say something else, you'll know that it's them. And nobody else can impersonate that person. So digital signatures support that.
Okay, thank you.